Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. We're back, 2 episodes in 3 days. Amazing scenes. Today, we are joined by special guest Matt the KITMAN, who's going to give us some wonderful insights into the world of pre-season at Brighton and Hove Albion. But before we dive into that sort of wonderful content, we're going to see who we've got on the show. Of course, I've just mentioned him. It's Matt the KITMAN. We welcome him back onto the show. Matt, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And it's nice to be back on and see you all. How is everyone? All good?
Very hot. And I don't mean like in
Very
an
hot,
attractive
yeah.
sort of way. I mean in a purely, oh my God, it is really warm. British summertime. Gotta love it. We also welcome back Kurtis. Kurtis, friend. How are you, my friend?
All the better for seeing your lovely faces. Thank you for having me back, obviously. So
we love you, Kurtis. It is great to see you back. And of course, he practically lives here. Joe, how are you, my friend?
I literally stay in this seat until you send me a link, Tom. Getting quite uncomfortable, actually. I think my bum's gone numb. I'm good, mate. Less robotic today, hopefully. On the last podcast, my audio was horrific, so I am really sorry to the listeners. I thought I sorted it mid-show, but clearly not. But yeah, we move.
We certainly do. And Joseph, talking of your bottom, Kurtis, can you give me a lovely Albion After Dark, please?
If I must, okay. Welcome to Albion After Dark.
Beautimous. Right then, guys, let's jump into our content for today. So before we chat about what pre-season looks like from the insider that is Matt the KITMAN, there has been some news coming out today regarding a few transfers out of the club. The first of which is Østigård. Now, I don't think it'll come as a surprise to anyone that Brighton look to be seeing the back of Leo Østigård. And it is rumoured that he's off to Napoli, Joe, for a potential £8 million. Do you see this as a good move for club and player?
Yeah, it's fabulous business. I don't know how much we bought him for, but it was certainly south of £8 million. So great money for the club. I said on the last podcast that I'm sure Graham has had to make a really educated decision over who he's going to keep, maybe whether that be Østigård or Van Heck. Obviously, Van Heck played in the USG game at the weekend and looked really promising. It's a great move, and it just didn't seem to be working for Østigård. Wasn't able to break through. Loan after loan. I think his loan at Stoke got cut short, and then I would say okay loan spell out in Syria. It's just one of those things where it just doesn't work out, and you can't blame anyone for that. And I'm sure he'd be chomping at the bit to play at Napoli.
Yeah, it definitely fits into the club's model of bringing in young players relatively cheap and then selling them on for a profit. Talking of selling young players on for a profit, Andy Naylor tweeted today that it looks like Aaron Connolly may be set to join Serie B Venezia, or Venice, if you are that way inclined. Kurtis, Aaron Connolly has been a very Marmite figure for Brighton. We talked about on the last podcast about him potentially living off those 2 goals for Spurs. Again, similar question to Østigård. Do you think that this is the right move for the club and the player, albeit we don't know whether this will be a loan or a permanent move?
I think either way, it's a good move for both parties. I think he'll get his game time. I just think that's what's important to him, clearly. I just think it would be good for him to go somewhere else and play. So
that was a very diplomatic answer, Kurtis. Very diplomatic indeed.
It was, and that's all I'm going to say.
Matt, what do you make of Aaron Connolly's move to Serie B? He showed, quite a lot of promise in the past, but it just doesn't seem to have worked out for him when he went to Middlesbrough on loan. Do you think it's time for him to get a fresh start?
Yeah, I do. I think I saw him play quite a bit last year for Middlesbrough, and he just didn't look like he was. I don't know. I don't quite know how to word it, but he just didn't look right there. I'm not sure whether it was the club or whether it was just him, but you know, he was very, very hit and miss when he was at Brighton anyway. Obviously, you talk about the game against Spurs where he scored a couple of goals and things looked bright from him there, but it just, for me, he just never really fit in well. And I think a lot has been made about him outside of football. I think a lot of like young players nowadays get a little bit taken away from the football and more the social media. Obviously, his girlfriend was on Love Island last year, and you know, a lot was made about that. So I think he's had distractions that hasn't helped his career at such an early age. So I think a move to, you know, what I consider a good club in Italy. You know, it's not just a fresh club, but it's also a fresh culture for him. It's a fresh, everything is sort of brand new for him. So it's something for him to sort of knuckle down and maybe take his focus a little bit more onto football as opposed to things off the pitch. So I sort of hope it's a loan move, so that he can come back as sort of a better person and a better player. But if it's a permanent move, I don't think it'll be long before we see him back in England and hopefully doing well.
There is undoubtedly a fantastic player in there somewhere. Let's just hope that, regardless of what happens with Aaron Connolly, that he revitalizes his career for the sake of himself as much as anyone else. And Joe, just before we jump into chatting to Kurtis and Matt's thoughts about the pre-season game against USG, you are very excited, Joe, about the return to training of Mitoma, the young lad who was on loan at USG actually last season. Japanese fans absolutely love him, Joe. Why are you so excited to see Mitoma training with the Albion?
It's just been one of those names that's floated around the club for so long. It's a little bit like the Percy Tau situation, which didn't work out too well for him, unfortunately. A little bit like the McAllister situation as well, where we're waiting so long to see this player finally in a Brighton shirt, and now we get that chance. Obviously gone with the squad to Portugal. A couple of the training videos, he's looking really sharp. We saw him have a really successful international stint over the close season with Japan. Done really well. He always does so well with Japan. He's like their star boy. So I'm joining the Japanese fans in the excitement for him to finally get to play in the Premier League. And I really want to see what he can do, because he just looks like one of those players that, again, has no fear. And I feel like that's what we need in the squad. We spoke about Enciso last week. Exactly the same. No fear, wants to take people on. Obviously, we're yet to see Mitoma play in a Brighton shirt. So hopefully in the next friendly we can really see what he's about. But yeah, I'm joining the Mitoma bandwagon, and let's get him on the back of my next kit.
Any room on that bandwagon, Joe? I might join you.
Yeah, definitely. Come along. Yeah. Come along.
Okay, cool.
Mitoma season. That's what you should change your Twitter hashtag to, Joe. Now, Kurtis, I'd love to just get a really brief summary of your opinion about the USG game. Now, myself and Joe, we've already chatted about it in our most recent podcast, but I just wanted to get your thoughts about that really quickly, if I can. Were there any players that stood out for you? Any players that you're really excited to see?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, Enciso, I thought Enciso looked quite good. I thought Van Heck looked good. I obviously it wasn't the most exciting game in the world or what have you, but I think it was good for them to get a good run around and have a competitive game and things like that. And I think it was just good to give some of these other lads a good showing, I think. And yeah, so far I've been impressed with a number of players. So, I look forward to the next games. So.
Fantastic stuff. And Matt, similar question to you. I don't know if you managed to see the highlights or any of the game at all. But as someone who's experienced pre-season from the other side of things, can we as fans take much from the early sort of starting 11s that we see managers put out? Or is it just a case of the manager seeing what's at his disposal for the coming season?
Yeah, it really pre-season games, especially the first sort of 3 or 4, you can't take anything from. It is just about getting players on the pitch and trying to find, sometimes it's just about finding something that you didn't even think could work. So it's just about players getting minutes in the tanks, getting that match fitness, getting that match sharpness. Like lineups really are, hit and miss, because you can have a few of your first teamers and some under 23s. I think Brighton have been quite lucky in terms of having players out on loan that they've been able to sort of bring back into pre-season and get to have a good look, like the Van Hex. I think that one's going to be probably the one that most people will watch out for, given how well he did at Blackburn, and given how it's sort of with Dan Burn leaving, it needing another centre back to come in. He's sort of the pre-made ready version, hopefully. So, but no, you can't ever take anything from the first few pre-season games, because they are literally just get players out on that pitch and get them as fit as possible.
Sorry, Tom, just before you go on saying else, you're spot on there, Matt, about Van Heck. Obviously having such a great season at Blackburn. I think I mentioned it in a podcast last season that if we were signing Van Heck from Blackburn for £15 million, fans would be so excited. Like, oh my God, we've got the next Delit. We've got the next, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a Dutch centre-back now. We got the next Van Dijk.
Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where if there's a big transfer fee attached to someone, the excitement's more. But I think we should be more excited that he's already our player and we don't have to spend a penny.
Very, very true. Now, just before we go on to grill Matt a little bit more about what pre-season looks like, I just really wanted to say just how wonderful it was to see football return to the Amex last night, as England ladies team absolutely demolished Norway. And I just wanted to say, go on record and say, it was such an exciting experience. And, as I say, to see that happen at the Amex was just mind-blowing.
An unbelievable advert for women's football as well. And the Amex has a weird way of creating these historic moments. I remember in the Rugby World Cup, Japan beating South Africa famously in that far corner, I think near the East Stand, or the West Stand, one of them.
Yeah, northwest corner.
But yeah, what an advert for women's football, and some of the football that was played by England was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I can't wait because I'm going to the quarterfinal at the Amex, which is now confirmed to be England. I don't think mathematically, but goal difference wise, it definitely will be. And I think Dan's going to be there as well. So yeah, it's going to be great to get the experience of that atmosphere as well.
Most definitely.
I think it was Joe that put on Twitter, actually, I didn't know the scoreboard could go up that high at the Amex. So it was cool to see that. But I echo what Joe was saying. It was such an incredibly great advert for women's football, and it was so good to see so many young fans there enjoying themselves. It was exciting. It was really, really good to see. So
yeah. Matt, did you watch the game?
I caught the extended highlights, but I think what's great about the result, and having not just the result, but also having England at the Amex, was the amount of girls it's now going to inspire to want to get into football. The younger girls, and that's only going to help the Albion with their WSL side and their academy, and pushing for players to come and join, because it's not very often you get to see your national team at your stadium, but to win so comprehensively, and like you say, mathematically, it's pretty much nailed on that Brighton are going to host England again. That how good is that going to be to watch again? So I think what that's going to do for the future, especially in Sussex, is going to be tremendous.
Really well put, Matt. Really well put. And just the last thing I will say is we are very hopeful that we can get a guest onto the show in the coming season to talk about the women's team. I have a contact, so we'll see if we can get her on to chat about the Brighton women's team, because that would be a really exciting chat. So come on, you Lionesses, it's coming home. So let's talk pre-season. Let's grill Matt's brain all about what pre-season looks like from the inside of the club. So I suppose, Matt, the best place to start is at the very beginning of pre-season. Now, I know that's already come and gone for this current season, but could you just talk us through those first few days of pre-season, about what the players are up to, what the staff are up to, you know, what's happening behind those doors as the players return from their holidays?
So the very beginning for us starts at the end of the season. So I think a lot of people seem to think that once the season is over, everyone's just off on their holidays, but there's a lot of actually staff members that are still there. So you get your medical staff that's still there for any injured players, because they don't get a holiday. They still have to come in for longer periods. But us kit staff are there waiting for the new kit delivery to come in. So we've got to wait for all of that to
when
come
will that
in.
be, Matt? When will the new kit delivery happen, please?
Well, it would already be delivered to the training ground now. So they'll have all the new match kits, and obviously you've seen the new training kits, which might I add are absolutely lovely. So that'll all be there. I believe the kit launch is for sometime in the next couple of weeks, but I don't have a definitive date. I did try and get it today.
A huge scoop on Albion Obsessed. Huge scoop.
But apparently they're nice. That's all I can say. But yeah, so pre-season is literally the first couple of days is about testing. So the players have to come in. They get all sorts of tests done. They've, you know, even the dentist is there on the first day to look at the players' teeth, and you know it's crazy. But so they'll come in and do their testing. They will get to go out with the ball for a little bit as well, and sort of dust off them cobwebs. And once they've done the first couple of days testing, they usually get a day off, just to sort of recover, because they are strenuously pushed to the limit really in what they do, in the gym, outside of the gym, running, all sorts. And then once they're back, they're out with the footballs, and they usually do double sessions. So there's usually a session in the morning, session in the afternoon, and a gym session plastered in the middle of that.
So leading up then to the first friendlies, is there tactic talks? Is it just about match fitness? Is the manager trying to implement his plans for next season already? What's going on in the lead up to those first matches?
Yeah, so they'll treat the pre-season games as they will treat league games. So you'll have your analysts looking at the opposition. Not so much what formations they're going to play, but sort of strengths and weaknesses of players is sort of paramount at that time. But yeah, the manager will go through tactics. They will try things in training. They'll do a lot of 11v11s, and try different things out to see how we defend against a certain formation and how we attack with a certain formation. And then when it comes to obviously games, the manager will then try and implement as much of that in with the games, the first few games. And then once they sort of find a blend that's good, then they'll work on that in training. So the manager, usually about sort of a week and a half to 2 weeks before the first league game, will have their starting lineup in mind. They'll tell the media, no, I don't know, we're seeing how it goes. They will know, and it will be worked on a daily basis up until that first game.
So Matt, like, what would you say, how much can the fans take from the personnel / sort of formations that are put out? Do you reckon they can take a lot from that, or?
Not from the first couple of games, definitely. They're all about getting the sort of the minutes in the legs and getting the fitness and match sharpness up. When it comes to sort of the last couple of pre-season games, you might start to see a little bit more of a similar-ish lineup, so that so the manager knows whether the players are up to it or not. But from the first couple of games, don't take anything from it. It will purely be first teamers mixed in with under 23 players, mixed in with players who weren't at the club last year, who are just looking to get an opportunity.
Talking of which, I don't know if you guys saw it. There was a picture posted on Brighton Twitter handle where they posted a picture of the goalkeeper union. I'm pretty sure, is it Ben Hamer, who he used to play for Charlton and Leicester and I think other teams as well. I'm pretty sure he was in the picture. And I know that he used to train with Ben Roberts at Charlton. So and we've obviously seen Dale Stevens as well. So it's just worthwhile pointing that out, Matt, that, we often open the training ground up to those players who are perhaps looking for a club. And Matt, just really briefly touching upon that, the idea of mixing the under 23s and the first team. Do you think it's fair to say that the under 23s that we see mixed in with that first team, will they be a part of Graham Potter's plans going forward, especially with the addition of 5 substitutes now? Is Graham Potter having a look at those players to see if they can make the step up to be a part of that first team squad, or are they just there for their own sort of experience?
I think a bit of both. Obviously, if they were with the under 23s last year or even the under 18s, then Graham will be talking to the management teams of both of them, finding out about them players. And sometimes it's just a case of before a training session starts, Graham will speak to the under 23 manager, say, "I need a right back," and they'll be like, "Okay, here's the right back," and they'll go into training. So it's very much. Sometimes it'll be, "Oh, this lad's got potential, let's give him a chance," or sometimes it will be, "I just need a body in there to make it even, to make an even number." So there's very. I remember when I was there at Brighton, we had a lot of the under 23s go on tour with the first team, and then never got a look in for the whole season. And sometimes never even got a look in with the under 23s. They were sat on the bench for the 23s for most of the season. So it's all. Yeah, sometimes it's, "Oh, this player looks all right," or sometimes it's, "I just need a number."
Fair. So talking of managers saying they need a certain player, let's talk ins and outs. So transfer rumours that get spread around left, right and centre during the off season and obviously towards the end of the transfer window. When those rumours are buzzing around the training ground, or let me rephrase the question, are there rumours buzzing around the training ground if there's paper talk?
Yeah, all the time. Obviously, the Michael Owen link was always in and around the club. And sometimes it's you take it with a pinch of salt. Sometimes, there are certain people that know at the club. So you'll have your head of recruitment. You'll have the head of the medical. So if a player is going to be coming in and having a medical, then they'll know, and then obviously they then pass it on to us because they need kit for them. That I think the one of the best ones for me was Bobby Zamora when he came back. That was kept so quiet around the club that no one knew. It was not even the medical staff knew who the player was. The medical staff were told, "You need to stay behind late," and bearing in mind this is about 8:30 at night at the training ground, and they made a conscious effort that all office staff were gone, all staff were gone. Obviously there's me in the kit room, no one's even noticed that I was there, and as I'm walking out, I'm done for the day. It's about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, had a long day, been there since 7 in the morning. I'm walking out, in comes the head of recruitment with Bobby Zamora, and I know Bobby, so I was chatting to him, and the look on the head of recruitment's face was a picture, because he was so gutted that someone was there who wasn't meant to be, and it turned out it was me. So I straight away got home, straight to my housemate going, "Bet you a tenner Bobby Zamora is going to re-sign for Brighton."
Insider trading. Very good. And of all the players to bump into on the way out when you're staying late, Bobby Zamora's got to be up there. Bloody hell. How absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I wonder then, guys, if the likes of Cucurella know how much chat there is about his move to City. And Matt, in just regards to that sort of thing, have you ever seen it go to a player's head, or does it affect their performance? How does a manager sort of, I suppose, keep a player's head in the right place if there's rumours buzzing around the training ground that they may soon be sold or they may soon have a bid put in for them?
It depends on the scenario, really. I mean, for someone like Kukurea, I'm sure he's going to be more than happy to stay at Brighton. He doesn't seem to be upset, doesn't seem to want to leave. But again, it could be different if there's a player who's not featured so much, who probably isn't going to be in the manager's plans, and there's rumours that he could be leaving because he might want to leave. A lot of players aren't really affected by it. It is what it is. There'll be a bit of banter flying about in the dressing room. There was quite a lot of that with a certain player who is still at the club now. When I was there, that you'll be living in London in a couple of days anyway, and it's more that's more what goes on. Is more the banter between players and the staff, in terms
Just
of
working
whether
that
you
out
hear
on
rumours.
timeline wise, Matt, that would either be Solly March or Lewis Dunk. I put that down to.
Yeah, London's a good hint.
Good stuff. Didn't I think when you came on last time, Matt, you told us the story. Was it Lewis Dunk that threw you in a bath or something? Refresh my memory.
Yeah, so it was my birthday, and I was in the laundry room, and Dunky came in and was just all full of beans, as he always is. Gave me a hug to say happy birthday, and I thought, oh, that's nice. Next thing I know, my legs are getting wrapped together in cling film by Jake Forster-Kasky, and I'm getting carried through the training ground and chucked in an ice bath. The video is on Dunky's Instagram still. I think you have to scroll quite near the bottom to see it, but yeah, it's on there. Not my proudest day.
Yeah, but it's given us a laugh. So
it's quite a story to tell someone, though. A very good story.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it again, Matt, because it is a hell of a story. So this week we've seen Brighton jetting off to Portugal to complete I suppose, an out of England training camp. So Matt, that must take a hell of a lot of coordination. What does it actually take to go on tour abroad, and what kind of planning goes into that?
A lot. So it's the majority of it. I mean, when I was there, it was planned by Steve Gibbon, who's the player liaison officer. He would have dealt with most of the stuff. But yeah, so in terms of like from the kit point of view, they sort of tend to go about 5 or 6 days after starting. It's usually after when they did it when I was there, it was usually after the first pre-season friendly away at Lewis. They'd jet off the next day, or the day after that, after their recovery day. So basically what would happen from a kit staff point of view, so we had Clive, who was sort of our main kit man, then it was me who dealt with the first team and the 23s at the time. So Clive and Alan, who was the academy kit manager, would have to drive the kit van from the training ground to wherever it is they went. So they went to Austria at the time because they couldn't get all the kit and equipment on the plane. So they left about 2 days before everyone else. So I had to look after the first team, the 21s and the under 18s, whilst they were having a lads' holiday in a van, listening to dodgy 70s music. But obviously they would take the majority of the training kit or new training kit. So I would be left with absolute scraps from last season and hope that any new player that's come in would fit in the old training kit that we've got left. But we managed to get by. The players were understanding of it. Obviously they either had to give their boots to Clive to take with them, or they had to take them over themselves, which for some of them was absolute hardship. They didn't know what to do with them, and it was just a case of just put it in your bag, mate. Like, just put it in your bag. Like, what more can you do? So, but yeah, a lot goes into it, and the tours are good. I never actually went on the first team tour because I had to be left behind to look after the first team whilst they were still there. and it was always nice when the first team left, because it was a bit quieter and there's sort of less work to do. I went on tour with the under-18s, so it was a sort of an agreement with Al that he would go and do the first team if I did his under-18s. But because we didn't have to take a lot with the under-18s, I managed to get all the players to take their own training kit. I literally just took match kit and balls, so it was quite nice and easy for me. And then when I was out there, so we went to Portugal twice. We had someone come and collect the dirty kit every day, wash it, bring it back, and all I had to do was sort it and tell the players, right, you've got to come and collect it from outside my room. And yeah, it was lovely. You know, it was practically a week's holiday for me in Portugal. You know, I got to join in with some of the training sessions as well, so it was nice showing up players like Jordan Maguire-Drew all the time. And we actually had Rob Sanchez on trial with us on one of the years in Portugal, and he made the most unbelievable penalty save I've ever seen in my life. Jordan Maguire-Drew, who thought he was good at penalties, hit it absolute top bins, and Rob's just dived and saved it. Not just saved it, but he's caught it and held on to it. And I mean, it's proper postage stamp. And I remember I turned around to the goalkeeping coach at the time, Mark Mason, who now works with England, and just went, yeah, he's going to be a good player, isn't he? And look at him now, he's Spanish international.
We've spoken about the rise of Robert Sanchez massively on this podcast over the last season. It's great you bring it up, because just a question's popped into my head. When he did join on trial, was you aware that this guy was going to have such a high ceiling that he has got, or did you think he'd just be a football league player?
No, his attitude was very much. Even when he was on trial here, he had the attitude of a first teamer. He really did have that presence about him, and it was quite funny at the time, because we had Christian Walton still at the club as well, and obviously everyone was, oh, Christian's going to be a star. Christian's going to be, you know, a Premier League player. And for me, Christian should be a Premier League player in the future. He's just not had the opportunities that maybe Rob has had presented to him, but there was never any doubt that Rob was going to be a top player. And you know, he always dreamed about going to playing for Spain. He always said, I'm going to play for Spain in the future, and he had that confidence about him, and he was always going to make it to the very top.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, Mr. Cool there. And talking of Jordan Maguire-Drew, I think he's just been promoted with Grimsby back to the Football League. So good for him. Good young Sussex lad.
Yeah, he actually scored the winner in the final as well, which was at West Ham Stadium. I speak to Jordan quite regularly, and hopefully now that he's been promoted, I'll go and watch him playing a few decent games next year. But yeah, he's a good lad. It's a shame it never worked for him at Brighton. You know, I think if Brighton had been in League One, he would have got into the squad, and I think he'd never have looked back. But obviously, where Brighton were, he was never going to sort of make that step up that quickly. I still think he'll make it to the top at some point, though. He is a very good player.
So Matt, going back to sort of the pre-seasons, you've gone on a couple with the team. Do you have any sort of infamous stories from your time with the squad on pre-season?
Not from any first hand. Obviously, when they get back from the first team pre-seasons, you hear the stories, and there wasn't, to be fair, when I was there wasn't very many. There was a few players who stole a golf cart and decided to drive around a golf course, and you know, a few players sneaking alcohol around the golf course away from the manager's back, which they thought was away from the manager's back, but Chris Hughton knew all about it. So it was, but nothing like stand out like what you hear from. I think it was a less story from Leicester City, wasn't it, on a night out? And I can't remember what happened, but there's nothing illegal to report anyway, unfortunately.
Yeah, I imagine Chris Hughton kept him on a very tight leash, you know. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Chris was a very a good man manager. when he left the club, I was gutted because I'd seen how good he was firsthand, and he dealt with things very well. I mean, there was an incident once where Dale Stephens and Gordon Greer came in from training, really arguing and shouting at each other, and they were sort of in the area where the players changed the boot. All the other players had sort of buggered off. They were like, "I'm not getting in the middle of that." And Chris Hughton walked in, and they were shouting the odds at each other from across the room. Chris Hughton walked in and just almost just sat down in between them, far away, crossed his legs, and just listened to them. And then when there was a moment of peace, he went, "Right, lads, shake hands, all done and dusted with now." And they shook hands and walked into the dressing room, and they were laughing about it. So, he just had that way of getting the best out of everyone. He was brilliant, Chris Hughton. I really hope he gets a job soon and gets back.
But fair play to Dale for taking on Gordon Greer.
Yeah, about to say, like, of all the Brighton players that you could go like toe to toe with, Gordon Greer would be very low on my list of the people I'd want to.
Isn't Chris Hughton working for the Nigerian national team now or something like that? I think he's like head of recruitment or something like that.
I'd heard something similar. I think he's stepped into some sort of international role. I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm sure with a bit of research we could find out. But no, I think, as you say, Matt, what a fantastic manager Chrissy Hughton was for us. And we just wish him all the best, as we always do. So that's fantastic. I mean, pre-season's still got a whiles to go. Kurtis, we chatted about in the last podcast about the next game for Brighton is when they return from their Portugal trip against Reading.
I actually think we're playing someone in Portugal.
We are, yeah.
Who are we playing in Portugal?
I don't know who it is, but they've got a green badge. That's all I know.
I think it's Brentford. No, Brentford's at the training
ground.
No,
we're playing Portuguese side.
Yeah, we're playing Estoril Praia, I think it's pronounced.
Whoever they are.
Yeah.
Well, is that going to be streamed? Do we know, Kurtis?
No clue. It'll probably be maybe on the YouTube. On the YouTube. Makes me sound so old.
YouTube.
But maybe it will. Yeah.
Well, that put my comment about
Tom.
Pre-season game. Ugh.
Well, go talk about the Reading game anyway, because it's the next one in England that we can actually watch.
This is true. And I was going to come to you, Kurtis, because I know that your brother likes the Reading. Is your brother, I think I already asked you this question in a previous podcast, but now it's drawing closer. Is your brother more excited to go and watch Reading play Brighton? Have Reading had a good pre-season, do you know?
Yeah, actually. They've literally just made a signing today of Jeff Hendrick. They got him on a season-long loan. He scored today as well. For them against Maidenhead. They 4-0 win there. It's kind of a perilous situation at the moment at Reading, what with the transfer embargo and lots of other different reasonings. But I think they're going to be fine. It's going to be another tough season, but I think they'll survive ultimately. And I know my brother is fairly worried about relegation, but they're doing what they can about it. And I think it's going to be a good game ultimately when we do play them. It should be exciting.
Good stuff. So, Matt, I suppose looking ahead to what remains of pre-season, what can we as fans expect from the build-up of intensity as they reach the first game of the Premier League season? What will that look like inside the camp? And at what point do you think Graham Potter will have his best 11 in his head?
I think he'll have his best 11 in his head sort of 2 weeks before the first league game. And I think he'll look to put that first 11 out in the last pre-season game, which is, I believe, a marquee game at the Amex. So it gives the fans the opportunity to see it. I think it will look, over the next sort of especially after Portugal, we'll start seeing players who are leave and players who aren't necessarily in his thought process at the moment go out on loan, and we will start seeing more of a squad moulding together and more of an idea of who's going to be in and around the squad for most of the season. I'd be very surprised if any major transfers are done. Usually clubs tend to try and get them done as quickly as possible, which is why I think Enciso was signed so quickly, because I believe there was a lot of interest in him. Obviously, I'm working with the Championship club at the moment, and we've done a lot of our signings early doors, and it's very unlikely now that you'll identify a player that you want to sign at this point. So it'll be any signings that are made now would have been decided upon within the last few months and looked at over the last season. But in terms of major signings, I don't think there'll be too many unless a major one really sort of becomes available unexpectedly, let's say. But I think we'll start seeing more of what team and what system and personnel Graham wants for this season towards the final 2 weeks of the pre-season.
So, Matt, just touching on, you spoke about identifying targets and them being located much before we know about it. What is it? What was the deal with all of these Twitter no smoke without fire type names that just pop up and then diminish? And like, for example, this is only an example, I'm just picking a name out of the air. Brighton are interested in Brereton Diaz, but there's actually no interest there. What sparks that? Is that just the media trying to get clicks, or is there anything actually going on in the background?
That could be his agent trying to either get them a better deal at the current club or trying to get other clubs interested. It can be the media as well, just sort of, that player, like you say with Brereton Diaz, that player is a Chile international playing in the Championship, doing really well. Maybe they could play in the Premier League, and then the media will sort of look what sort of clubs they could end up at, and it then starts a sort of a rumour mill that nobody really knows anything about, and then it then 9 times out of 10 comes to nothing, or the player does get a move and it's to a club that no one expected, but because of that original rumour, that's how it's got the move.
Very interesting. I think we've seen that quite recently with people claiming to be in the know about a certain Mo Camaro, who I know that people were losing their rag over a little bit today, because apparently in an interview with Mwepu, they couldn't decide whether he said Mo or more. So everyone, of course, is losing their minds.
Tell us in the comments, which camp are you in? Are you in the Mo camp or are you in the Moore camp? Let's start this.
Are you in the Mo or no camp?
Mo or no. Love it. But yeah, very interesting to hear that, these targets have probably been identified months ago. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The club they do their business so quietly, and they keep these things under wraps so well. Listeners, I would just take everything you see, everything you hear with a massive mountain of salt, because as Matt's alluded to, a lot of the time it'll be media, wanting their clicks. It will be agents hyping up their players. So, don't believe everything you see. And City fans.
The thing is, as well,
talking of salt, let's just call out the Man City fans here. I got a mountain of hate for what I posted about Kukurea. I don't know if you're on Twitter, Matt, but I tweeted a video of Kukurea going at the camera doing something funny, and I said, "This is to all the Man City fans that think he's agreed personal terms. This is what I think of you." And yeah, it got a lot of hate.
How dare you for having an opinion, Joe? What's wrong with you?
I think as well, like you say, Tom, the club keep it under wraps, because if they are after a player and it suddenly becomes known that the club are after a player, the price then goes up, because then there's more interest, because it's very unlikely that a Premier League club is the only club going after a player. Usually you find there's 1 or 2 clubs who are going after a similar player. Working at a Championship club, we find that whenever we're negotiating with a player, their agent is speaking to about 5 or 6 other Championship clubs. So the quieter a club can keep it, the cheaper that they can get everything in terms of personal terms and a fee for.
How do those battles between the clubs work then, Matt? Like as you say, you're trying to negotiate with a certain player, and you know for a fact that the agent's on the phone to 5 other clubs. Is there
Adam Pritchard on the M25?
Yeah, like how frustrating must that be?
It's very frustrating because you don't know what the agent is saying to them. You don't know what the clubs are saying to the player. At the end of the day, you can only sell your club to that player and say, this is where you'll fit in with us. This is where we see you. This is where we see the club going. We see you as being a part of that. And 9 times out of 10, a player will actually join because of a project, more than money. But sometimes you'll get the agent who is just who doesn't want his player to go to that club, and he's like, well, this is my fee, and sort of it's an astronomical fee, and you're like, we're not going to pay that, and then the player will end up joining another club because his agent has sort of forced their hand. It's very frustrating. It's even more frustrated sort of the lower down the leagues you go. Premier League clubs, it's a little bit easier to sort of to sell yourself to a player, but because of where you finished last season. If you finish 7th or 8th, a player's going to be like, right, they could push for Europe. If you finish sort of 16th or 17th and you struggled, they might be a bit less keen to join you. So
very true, and let's hope that the fact that we finished in the top 10 has definitely made us more appealing to those potential players that we're trying to get. And I've just remembered that it wasn't Adam Pritchard. I have a friend called Adam Pritchard, which is why it was a bit of a Freudian slip. It was Alex Pritchard, who was on the M25 and got diverted to Norwich.
And look where he is now.
Yeah, but he did score. Didn't he score? Was he the one that's when he played for Norwich hit the post and it bounced back, hit David Stockdale and went in? So
he was, Tom, but we just finished 9th in the Premier League, and I think he just got released from Sunderland. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
shots fired by Joe.
Whoopsies.
We're not bitter, we promise.
No, but what I've noticed with Brighton in recent years is we've been incredibly sensible and meticulous with our signings, especially with players like Veltman and people like that. So I trust the club in regards to signings. So yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, we only made 2 first-team signings last year in Kukurea and Mwepu. Yes, I know we bought Undav in January, but he hasn't actually made his first-team debut yet. And I think that on paper, you might think, they've only bought in 2 players. There's a lack of ambition, blah, 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 blah. But actually what the club do very well is they identify targets and they almost take it as like a bit of a, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I almost get the impression it's a bit like a Moneyball approach, like we've seen in baseball in the past, where they identify players with a certain sort of stat base, and then they look at their potential resale value. And that's what very much dictates how we go about it. And whenever I see rumors circulating on Twitter, North Stand chat, whatever, I always look at the player's name and I always think to myself, if I've never heard of them, chances are there might be something in it. Because half the play, I'd never heard of Mwepu, I'd never heard of Kukurea before they signed for us. But look what they've helped us achieve. So yeah, very exciting future. And what I will say to all the doubters out there, all the fans that are wringing their hands, type in cap locks and all that stuff, is trust the process. We've still got a long time until that transfer window slams shut. Trust the process, because the club know what.
Announce Kamara. Announce Kamara.
Announce the kit.
But I think what's lucky as well is a lot of clubs, their managers don't get to pick the players. They don't have any say in the recruitment process at all. But I very much get the impression that at Brighton, Graham Potter is very much in and around them conversations. Obviously, the recruitment staff will identify the players first, and then they'll take it to Graham, and he'll then look at it and then they'll work on something together if something's not quite right with one player but another. And I think you look at some clubs in the Premier League, their managers don't have any say in it whatsoever, and they're sort of lumbered with a player that they don't really want, but they've got to coach and got to try and fit in their system somewhere.
Think Cristiano Ronaldo much. But anyway, right. Well, it's been a really nice time chatting to you, Matt, and thank you so much for the valuable insight you can give to us and our listeners all about what pre-season looks like from the other side. So that brings us to the end of our show today, guys. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to Joe, Kurtis, and Matt for their wonderful opinions and insights for today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you guys. Listeners, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content if you haven't done so already. Remember that like button, it's free to click. You know, I don't want to be begging for likes.
Smash the like button. Share it to your friends. Tell everybody. Scream from the mountaintops and all that stuff.
Tell your neighbour. Tell your dog walker.
And announce Kamara.
And announce the kit, you bloody millennials. And on that bombshell, we bid you a good evening, a good day, a good night, wherever, whenever you may be. We've been Albion Obsessed. Take care, guys. See you later.
Bye.